Make up mine. Fight.
Hey there everybody, this is Opal, and this is going to be a little bit of a fillerish TF2 video to make up time while I'm unable to work on TF2 videos full time. For those of you who don't know, I'm currently working on a video for my second channel, Opal Reviews Everything, and am only one man without the ability to record, play, and edit multiple videos at the same time, and I do have to keep up my goal to get one video a month out a month on my second channel. So in the meantime, I still wanted to get out some TF2 content for this channel, and I figured I'd make a little bit of a fillerish follow-up to my underrated Mercenary Grade Hats video. A very common suggestion I got as a follow-up to that video was to make a video about assassin or elite grade hats that I specifically dislike. However, I really don't see that as a viable video idea just because it would boil down to me cherry-picking hats for the grade Valve gave them rather than what the creator actually made, and that didn't seem entirely fair to me. So for this video, I want to talk about 9 hats in TF2, one for each class, plus an all-class hat that I unironically hate. These are some of my least favorite cosmetics in the game, and ones that I think the game would genuinely be better off without. I want to note that we're not going to get too caught up on player-to-player stigmas or perceived identities of the people who use these items in this video. I really don't want to indulge player-to-player drama, and would rather focus on the individual quality or lack thereof of the items. Also, I want to stress that this is entirely my opinion. If you love these hats, that's entirely within your right to do so, and please tell me why you do in the comments below. Additionally, I want to note that I mean absolutely no personal disrespect to the creators of any of these items. The people who contribute cosmetics to TF2 are some of the most talented and important people in the community. They are the people adding new content to the game every patch and not Valve, so I mean no personal shade or disrespect to any item creators in this video. Lastly, I do realize the lack of self-awareness that goes into just ranting about a bunch of virtual hats that don't mean anything, and don't worry, I'm living up to the stigma. That said, let's roll with my least favorite scout cosmetic. My least favorite scout cosmetic is the Corpse Carrier. I don't think this is a very unpopular opinion. This is a hat that's frequently in the conversation for items in the game that muddle class silhouettes and make it difficult to tell what's a hitbox. This hat specifically is interesting because this is the only item in the game that's ever been updated to be made Halloween exclusive. When this item was added to the game, you could wear it at any time of year, which was absolutely ridiculous. And a few days after the Scream Fortress update this was added in went live, Valve actually went ahead and made this item Halloween restricted, and gave everyone who had unboxed it an additional cosmetic from the crate that was not Halloween restricted. The fact that it was ever considered okay for this to be worn year-round is a real testament to the fact that Valve doesn't do too much quality assurance testing with the items they're adding to the game, because boy howdy is this thing insane. I personally feel that it still remains to this day, despite the opinions of some YouTubers, pretty easy to tell which class is which. I don't think there's really any cases where a class's silhouette is entirely muddled, and I do think at the end of the day, the silhouette and posture of a class is what's most important in identifying who they are, but this item just muddles Scout's silhouette a little bit too much. There's also the potential for a new player sniper not knowing which Scout head to shoot, which I think is a real problem with a cosmetic like this. All in all, while I understand the concept, it is a very fun, silly Halloween item. The fact that this was released as a year-round cosmetic, and the fact that it complicates Scout's silhouette so much just really leads me to not enjoy this cosmetic. My least favorite soldier cosmetic is the Dancing Doe, and I know this might come off as a bit controversial. I know this hat does have its fans. It's based on a meme after all, and people are bound to like that in the TF2 community, but I am just not a fan of this one. I realized there was some controversy surrounding the creator of this item when it first came out that I'm not entirely privy to. Frankly, I don't really care. I don't want to indulge player-to-player drama. I want to stay on my own little island and just talk about the game, so we're going to completely ignore that aspect of it. The thing that I don't like about this hat is that it's a little bit of a stretch to include in TF2 contextually. I am not someone who cares too much about TF2's time period or its art style or anything. I think this is an intrinsically cartoony and unrealistic game, and if you're going to get worked up about items clashing with the art style or not fitting in the time period, then you're kind of fighting a losing battle. However, I do think this hat is a little bit of a stretch in that regard, even for me. This specific style of like bandana and earrings and necklace and stuff wouldn't really come into popularity for a long time after TF2 takes place. The adult film model Ricardo Milos this hat is based on wouldn't be born for a collective 15 years after TF2 takes place, and obviously the internet meme that this item is based on wouldn't come into exist for like 40 years after TF2 takes place. Once again, I don't really mind cosmetics like this in general. I don't hate the Millennial Mercenary, for example, because even though the hairstyle wasn't popular, it was entirely within the realm of possibility for someone to wear it when TF2 took place. However, this item being based on a meme, being based on a person who wouldn't be born for a collective 15-20 years after TF2 takes place, and some of the smoke around it just really makes me not enjoy it. This is one of my less liked hats in the game. On to Pyro, my least favorite cosmetic for them is a bit of a weird one because it's not one that clashes with the game's time period or art style. It's not one that muddies the class's silhouette. It's just one that I think is pointless, and that is the Scrap Sack. I'm willing to bet a lot of you didn't even know this hat existed. I certainly didn't until I started looking at a list of cosmetics a few months ago, and I am just not a fan of this thing. It is a literal bag of fucking garbage. It's just a big old metal sack full of trash and metal scraps that Pyro wears on his back. This is like the most unappealing, nothing robo cosmetic they could have possibly added to the game. I realize it's based on the pyrotechnic tote, which is another cosmetic I'm not a huge fan of, but at least that one has fireworks and oil and a barbecue cookbook and stuff in it. It's cute, it fits with Pyro. This one is just a bag of literal fucking scrap trash. I cannot conceive of a reason why you would put this in your loadout other than it being one of your only cosmetics you have available for Pyro. On top of that, this was added in the Robotic Boogaloo update, which famously added a bunch of lackluster cosmetics, but this one's a little bit of a stretch even by the standards of the Robotic Boogaloo update. Imagine you buy one of those really expensive leftover Robotic Boogaloo cases with the intent of hopefully unboxing one of those cool Robotic Boogaloo unusual effects, and you get this thing from the case instead. While I don't think this cosmetic is offensive or clashes with anything, it's just a totally pointless, unappealing cosmetic to me. My least favorite Demoman cosmetic has a bit of a story to it. It's more personal than the other cosmetics in this list so far, and that is the Forgotten King's Pauldrons. Now, I realize this is probably to most people a totally inoffensive Halloween cosmetic, but that's exactly why I dislike it. You see, back in the day when TF2 added haunted Halloween gifts and you could get free Halloween cosmetics from finding them on maps and stuff, I received an untradeable, unmarketable Forgotten King's Pauldrons from one of those Halloween gifts. And I never really wore it, I just kind of held onto it and went around with it. But throughout the years, I would proceed to receive more and more untradeable, unmarketable Forgotten King's Pauldrons from things like Halloween contracts and Halloween transmutes and things like that. Valve just kept throwing these things at me. At one point, I had 3 of these things at once. On top of that, this item was kind of butchered from its original intent, as it was intended to be included in a whole Skeletor item set with this huge armor set for Demoman and everything. However, Valve only half included it, only adding the skeleton face in this item, and didn't go all out when adding the entire armor set, so it just looks incomplete in game whether or not you're wearing the skeleton head with it or not. While I don't hate this cosmetic, my history with it combined with Valve not fully committing to adding the creator's work to the game really results in an item that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. My least favorite heavy cosmetic. My least favorite cosmetic for my favorite class is the Warmth Preserver. This is an item I have thought looked ugly as sin since the day it was added to the game. I have never been a fan of this cosmetic. Even as a teenager, when this item was first added to the game, I thought it was really bad. And the reason for it, the primary reason that I view this as Heavy's worst shirt or coat cosmetic, is because it only covers the front of his model. If you look at this cosmetic in a 3D view, it does not have a back. This item is just a frontal chest plate for Heavy that does not change his back or any other surrounding parts of his body or clothing at all. The person who modeled this item really just went ahead and made a frontal coat for Heavy, but didn't bother to wrap it all the way around or complete the item. It looks remarkably incomplete and half finished in game, and if you're looking at the Heavy's back, you can never even really tell that someone's wearing this cosmetic. I think if this was a full coat for Heavy that had a cool puffy back and everything too, it'd be really neat and would really fit in a lot of winter-themed Heavy loadouts. But as is, this thing just looks remarkably incomplete and amateurish to me. I'm surprised Valve even went ahead and added this one to the game, considering that it is incomplete, but for what it is, it's not the worst cosmetic in this list, just one that I'm kind of not a fan of. My least favorite engineer cosmetic is another totally inoffensive one that I just think is kind of ugly and pointless, like the Pyro cosmetic from earlier, and that is the Wingstick. Now, I realize this was a promotional item for the game Rage, and it is an iconic weapon from that game, but I've never met someone who's actually played Rage and has an opinion on it. And also, I just think this cosmetic is kind of ugly. Not unlike the Pyro one from earlier, this just looks like worn scrap metal garbage on the engineer's hip. Like, I can't think of a reason you would choose to equip this over any beard or coat or hat for engineer. This item is also just kind of hard to make out and differentiate. Like, considering that it overlaps with the extension cord engineer has on his hip, I could realistically see someone not even noticing that an engineer on their team is wearing this thing. It's really unnoticeable and low-key in a really unappealing way. What reason or cosmetic theme could you come up with to include this cosmetic in your set? Once again, this is a totally inoffensive cosmetic, just one that I think is kind of ugly and pointless. My least favorite medic cosmetic is one that I've been waiting years to make fun of, and I finally have an opportunity to. The Couve Corner, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. This cosmetic is borderline unnoticeable. In the throes of an average TF2 match, you will never see that your medic is wearing this thing. It's so unnoticeable that its backpack icon has to zoom in on it. Like, it has a little circle pointing to it in its backpack icon. This is such a low-key cosmetic, but not in like a subtle or interesting way, just in a why would you ever equip this over another medic cosmetic way. Even if you're someone who really cares about respecting TF2's art style and not equipping all these gaudy new Halloween cosmetics, this one's a little too low-key even for that mentality. I just do not see a reason to ever equip this thing. Also, fun fact, according to this item's modeler, Sparkwire, this thing was finished in under 40 minutes. They literally made this item in less than the amount of time my lunch break at work is. All in all, this cosmetic is just kind of fiercely pointless and unnoticeable to me, and one that I kind of almost respect for even being in the game. Like, the fact that this got added, considering the time of work that went into it, is pretty respectable, all things considered. Now, my least favorite sniper cosmetic, I feel, is going to be the most controversial choice in the video. I feel like people are going to get really mad at me for this one, but you can't compromise in your beliefs, so let's go. I fucking hate the Bushman. And it's not because it's a muscular cosmetic. It's not because it makes a sniper all muscular and cool. I like the burly beast, and I like the dynamite abs for Demoman. I think items like this are totally fine and very funny. My problem with the Bushman is twofold. Number one is that it makes it pretty difficult to tell if a sniper is on your team or the enemy team from a distance. Like, the team-colored aspects of this item are a little bit too subtle for my liking, and I realize that that's a big point of contention with a lot of modern TF2 cosmetics, and I feel like people kind of blow out of proportion. I don't think it's generally too hard to tell if someone is on your team, but in the case of this cosmetic, I do think it goes a little overboard in that regard. And the other reason is just that in practice, like in the actual playing the video game TF2, this item is just kind of ugly. Like, the way the sniper's arms look and the way that they bend and the way his model contorts when he does certain animations just looks really unnatural and gross. It doesn't look as immediately appealing as the dynamite abs or the burly beast. I understand why people like this cosmetic so much. It is very funny, and I understand why people would want to wear it on their snipers. But for me, the combination of it making it difficult to distinguish whether or not a sniper is on your team and just not looking that great in practice makes it one of my less liked cosmetics. On to Spy. He's in a bit of an interesting position because I actually don't dislike any of Spy's cosmetics on principle. I think Spy has one of the more universally fine and unbothered lineups of cosmetics in the entire game, and because of that, we're gonna go with a cosmetic that I don't dislike on its own merits, but rather due to a decision Valve made regarding it, and that is the Nightmare Hunter. This is obviously a Freddy Krueger hat for Spy, and fun fact, it was contributed to the workshop alongside an entire fitting-themed Freddy Krueger loadout with multiple cosmetics to really tie the look together. However, Valve only went ahead and added this one, the Fedora, so rather than having a cool Freddy Krueger themed Spy, you can just have a Spy with a weird worn fedora, which he already has in multiple non-Halloween restricted variants, that you can only wear at certain times a year that doesn't have its full set to go along with it. If this item was added alongside the entire Freddy Krueger set, I'd really like it, but as is, it just kind of feels incomplete and lackluster on its own. I feel bad for the creator too, because with the entire set, this item would have been really cool. And for a bonus, let's talk about my least favorite multi-class cosmetic in the game, and that is the Brimstone. Now, I have played The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. I know what the Brimstone is, and I know what this is a reference to. I realize it's a very iconic and widely loved item from that game. However, I think in TF2, this item is just kind of ugly as sin. Like, the way the horn just jut out from the class's head looks really unnatural, and the fact that they went ahead and added a hat or no hat style, this leads to weird clipping issues if these horns are clipping through class's default hats in a really unappealing way. On top of that, if you look at the other Binding of Isaac promotional items that were considered to be added to the game alongside Rebirth, you can really see why they went with this one. You can tell these items are made by people who do not specialize in 3D modeling. Overall, I understand if you use the Brimstone, especially if you're a big Binding of Isaac fan, but I just think this item is really ugly. And there we have it. Please don't kill me. Once again, I want to reiterate that these are just my opinions, and that if you love or use any of these cosmetics, that's entirely within your right to do so, and more power to you. The majesty of TF2 and building loadouts in it is that one man's trash is another man's treasure. So for all I know, a lot of you could really hate the Capos Kappa or the Leftover Trap or the SAR Platinum, but they're some of my favorite cosmetics in the game. Regardless, thanks, hope you have a fantastic day before, during, and after watching, and I'll catch you all later. Cheers.
Alright, I'm back.
Nice. Oh my god!
I just witnessed hell. Okay.
Medic just got fucking evaporated. Medic, I'm so sorry, bro. You got fucking mollywopped, dude.